Welcome back to maybe the most important episode of the Avs season preview. AJ can't even handle it already. He's so hyped.
I was just gonna ruin the recording and just say something.
You should have. You should have committed.
Yeah, I don't need any more moms yelling at me right now.
Well,
I've already got an actual mom, and then a fiance that yells at me enough. I don't need Allie continuing this bullshit while I'm at work.
I feel like you're treading dangerous waters already.
Well, and then if I piss her off, Lindsay will yell at me too. So
you're just making enemies out here.
Dude, we're going to avoid all of this conversation now.
All right. We're going to leave that unfinished and get to the Avs unfinished business instead. Look, the Avs will almost certainly have a top 5 defense in the NHL this year. If not top 3, if not top 1.
Well, on opening night, it's going to take a big hit. With Devon Toews having shoulder surgery and not being cleared for practice throughout the preseason and training camp, and him expected to miss an indeterminate number of games because we don't get timelines in Avalanche media.
As is tradition.
Good to be back. I think that... the lack of Toews really, because it's that defensive three-headed monster.
Yep.
That really drives them.
Makar, Girard, Toews.
Yeah, but without Toews, it's also opportunity specifically for Bowen Byram.
No doubt about it. Should we just start with Byram then and dive in the deep end, or do you want to start with the new guy?
Let's start with the hurt guy and then get it out
Sure,
of the
we can
way.
get Toews out of the way. That's fine.
Finished 9th in Norris voting. Had a great first year in Colorado.
Yep.
Was a perfect fit. Was one of 3 guys on the Avs defense who had 30 points last year, which would be an accomplishment in an 82-game season. But
Let
in
alone
a 56-game season, it was awesome.
Yep.
So Devon Toews just needs to do what he did last year. I don't expect the 9 goals will happen again. I think it'll probably be more in the 5 to 7 range.
Yep.
Depending on how much time he misses, might be leaning a little bit more towards the 5. But I mean, there's no questions that Devon Toews was a picture-perfect fit in Colorado. And given his postseason play last year, that was a question mark coming in because he had badly struggled with the Islanders and was one of the reasons why he was on the chopping block right away.
Yep.
Instead of Nick Leddy, who the Islanders then moved this offseason.
Right.
Toews struggled against Tampa Bay quite a bit in their conference final series in the Edmonton bubble 2 years ago, and then really didn't have the same problems. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't dominant, but he absolutely held his own next to Cale Makar in the Vegas Golden Knights series, and their pairing was the only one that was above water in that series.
Yep. And I think the versatility of Toews is such a huge linchpin for the Avs defense because he can play two-way. If you want him to play the power play, he can. If you want him to PK, he can. He can be an effective...
He did both last year.
He can... Yeah, exactly. He can be the puck mover on a pairing if you have someone who's lacking in puck moving ability. He can be the defense first minded guy on a pairing with Cale friggin' Makar.
Yeah, with Cale Makar. When Cale Makar would decide that it was wild horses time, Toews was the defensive conscious of that pairing.
Yep.
And they succeeded at an extremely high level. It would be unfair to say that they have to turn around and do that again because the numbers that the kind of underlyings and analytics that they put up last year
actually outrageous.
we're talking like all time,
one of the best possession metrics ever.
Yeah, and like not realistically repeatable, and playing in the entire league and not all the baddies in California and Arizona.
Yep.
Like not getting fat off of just a terrible, terrible schedule and having to go against the entire league. That alone will bring all those numbers down because they'll play a lot more good teams than they did last year. And that's why it's like expectations should be tempered a little bit. But there's no reason to think that Devon Toews is not still a legitimate first pairing defenseman.
Which brings us to our best case scenario for Toews. Continues being a two-way D linchpin for the Avs, playing next to Cale Makar when he's healthy.
Yep.
Maybe. But we'll get to that in a second.
Yep.
And then the worst case scenario, beyond already being injured, which is not a great start, as AJ mentioned, if he reverts back to that weak defensive play against the top competition in the league, it's going to be a big problem.
There were some games last year where you saw those cracks show up, but you're also reminded these guys are human.
Yeah.
To perform at that high a level. He went like 30 games.
Yep.
Where you're watching him and you're like, I can't remember him making a mistake in 2 months.
He was legitimately a machine for a while there.
Yeah.
And to be clear, when we say he struggles defensively against top competition, we don't mean for one game. It's across an entire series or a stretch, or he gets exposed in some specific way repeatedly. If he has one bad game, if any player has one bad game, it's a bad game. Nothing more than that.
Absolutely. So, a player of his caliber, those things still happen to those guys.
Yep. At every level. Every single player ever, I don't care how good they are, has bad games.
It's not like Connor McDavid scored in every game that he played in the OHL.
Yep, exactly.
It only felt like it.
The Otters didn't even win the chip in his last year there. So
yeah, did they even win the OHL?
I think they came in second in the OHL, right? They lost the finals. So there you go. Can't do it all.
That team had McDavid, Burakovsky, and Dylan Strome.
Yeah,
Junior Dylan Strome, where it didn't matter that he couldn't skate.
He was a machine. Well over 120 points or something, I think.
So you're talking Devon Toews,
the real deal.
Yep. Whenever he gets back, their defense gets much better.
Yep. And knowing that it's a shoulder thing, he's going to miss time, but you wouldn't expect him to miss a significant portion.
The upside of it being the shoulder is that the vast majority of conditioning work he can keep up.
Yep.
And so that
his skating will be good to go. Yep.
Easier transition from injured list to game action.
Yep.
When he's been able to keep up with all of his conditioning work.
Yep.
And his skating. And we've seen him out in captain's practices. He's progressing very well. They told us no timeline. They told us that he will miss some regular season games.
More than one.
But it would not be a surprise if he got cleared for contact
5 games into the season or whatever.
In the preseason.
Yeah. Right.
And then they use that first week or two of the regular season to
just to game speed him. Yeah.
Yep. To really sink it home.
Yeah. I think expectations, even if they're not literally world breaking like they were last year, they're still going to be a very, very good defender here in Devon Toews.
Yep. He's a part of their big three on defense for a reason.
Yep. We'll get to the rest of the big three in a second. I do want to go to Ryan Murray next as the new guy on the defense here.
I'm really excited about this pickup.
He really does embody all of the things that fit Avalanche stylistically on the back end. So
yeah, and his offensive instincts are a lot better, and I think they're going to be encouraged a lot more by both Pratt and Bednar.
Yep.
We've seen them lean hard into guys and say, if you're feeling it, go for it. Mm-hmm. I mean, how much freedom did Ryan Graves have to do whatever he wanted?
Go nuts.
When he felt like he saw an opportunity, they encouraged that.
Yep.
We're going to see that out of Ryan Murray in the first time in his career.
Yep.
He spent his whole career playing for very offensively conservative approaches in Columbus and then last year in Jersey, where he just wasn't on a very good offensive team. This year, he's going to be surrounded by the kind of talent, and he's not going to have the kind of expectations that he's had in his entire career. The Avalanche are looking at Ryan Murray and saying, come in, play on your third pairing with us, stay healthy, play 16 minutes a night, 16 to 18 minutes a night, move pucks efficiently, kill penalties. He's always been a good PK guy. Block some shots and work your way towards, on a 1-year deal, go get paid next year.
And especially with some of the ability I think that the Avs are bringing in, especially once Toews is healthy. We'll talk about EJ and Byram in a little bit. those are a lot of dudes that can free up Murray to kind of do
Absolutely.
what he likes to do.
And I went back and watched a lot of his. I didn't watch very much of his Jersey stuff because last year was just such a weird, and I just kind of stayed away from it.
Sure.
But I went and I watched a lot of the Columbus tape just to get a feel. His offensive instincts are really a lot better than his production would suggest in his career. There's always the caveat of his injuries and how much they were affecting him, and we'll talk about it here in a sec. But his instincts really have me encouraged, and he's a very good defender. And he's not overly physical, but he's a quality defender. He's got good size, not great size. He's not like a super physical guy, but he's not afraid of physical play. He'll engage when he needs to, and he can succeed that way. And I think that the versatility of his skill set and his natural puck moving acumen, while also being a good defender, make him a very, very good fit in Colorado, I think there's a chance that this coaching staff connects with him,
and it all comes together,
and you might see a big time. I think you always talk about when high draft picks go places. Oh, maybe it all magically clicks and gets put together. The coaching staff is a huge part of these things. What they ask of their players, how they ask them to play, what their expectations are. In a limited role for Murray, and not like a super sheltered or anything, but they don't need to lean on him for big anything. They just need a steady quality player. And if he gets the confidence, if he gets empowered to play the way that he's capable of playing, if he gets the confidence all of a sudden to play with the offensive jump that we saw from him before he got to the NHL. Now, this is a long time ago, granted, and it might have been coached out of him completely by now. But if they empower him, he could be a guy that throws up a 30-point type of season where you're just like, whoa.
And the reason that the idea of a 30-point season from him is so encouraging is that all the Avs need out of him is a steady sixth banana defenseman.
Yeah.
And anything else is gravy.
Yeah.
So, assuming health. But, beyond that, to your point, the Avs are an organization that understand. Tyson Barrie has come through. They're able to work with a player like Sam Girard, and they allow these players, as you put it, to be wild horses.
Well, and Cale Makar.
To a lesser extent, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, Cale Makar is still more of an offensive defenseman than a defensive monster. Easily the biggest, and he would tell you, and anybody else that is educated on his game would tell you that his defensive details is still the number one area of his game that he needs to refine and get better at.
Yep. So the organization understands how to work with a certain type of defenseman, and honestly, they work pretty well with every defenseman right now, it feels like. But
Nolan Pratt is doing the kind of job where you start to wonder when he's going to get
a real opportunity
somewhere. An AHL head
Yeah.
coaching job as a developer of talent.
Yep. So definitely excited to see what Murray has. His best case scenario, we can officially throw it up for you, has to stay healthy, and then Avs the puck moving punch to the Avs defensive depth. Like I said, if they get third pairing 15, 20 points out of him, solid defense, great. Anything more than that, you feel
he should feel like this has gone so well.
Maybe just stick around.
That I should try and find a way to stay.
Yeah, exactly right. So that his worst case is extremely easy. He's another guy who's had a career of injuries.
A lot of injuries. This is not
a short list.
This is not a guy that misses 5 games a year, and you're like, oh, he gets dinged up every year.
This is a guy that misses 40 games
This
a year.
This is a guy who has a string of seasons of 40 games played and 50 games played.
Lots of missed time.
A lot of it, and it's not one injury. It's a myriad of injuries that have impacted him throughout his career. And so it's the number one concern. Can he stay healthy? Because you can't have the Ryan Murray conversation without the injuries.
Yep.
It's just an unfortunate.
Reality.
Now, he was healthy for the most part last year. If he can do that again, then you start to feel like, hey, maybe he has a hold on this. He has talked into the media about some of the different, he's got a trainer. He has a much better understanding of
his own body,
and how how to get the most out of it and how to understand what it's telling him when certain things are bothering him. And instead of just powering through and doing the same things, adjusting and learning different stretching techniques that are able to maximize his ability to go out and play every day.
Yep.
Instead of just being like, hey, I tweaked this, I'm too hurt to play. So, and then making it worse because you try and go through it and you try and go through it and you try and go through it, that you've now made this injury significantly worse instead of taking care of it properly at the start. So he's a guy that if he is able to stay healthy, you do start to wonder, okay, maybe he has turned this corner and it was just an information battle.
Yep. And if he can prove, once again, adding to potentially down the line, if he proves he can have 2 back-to-back healthy seasons, this is a guy that becomes interesting for another contract.
Yeah, and his style, his age, he's not old at all.
Yep.
Really makes a lot of sense for the Avalanche to consider a longer-term relationship if things go well for everybody involved.
Don't jump the gun there.
Yeah, he is that type of guy where you would be. There are some guys. A lot of guys on this team are going into free agency next year.
Yep.
And some of them you've kind of earmarked as this guy is probably moving on. I think Murray, for right now, is probably a moving on kind of guy.
Sure.
Because we expect if he stays healthy and he plays really well, the
get
Avs
paid.
are not going to be able to get him to come back and play on a third pairing for $2 million again.
Yep.
They're going to have to pay a real price because guys like him are at a premium, and 2 healthy seasons will assuage a lot of fears
for a lot
that
of
NHL teams have about a guy like Murray right now.
So, with Devon Toews out to start the season, you start to have a question of what pairings are going to look like.
Yep. I mean, number one.
Yeah.
It's Cale.
Easy enough. That one's locked and loaded.
Defense with Cale.
Yep. He's locked in. Do you want to hit him really quick?
Well, we can save it for now.
Save it. All right.
We can put up those numbers and we can give you guys a minute. Sorry to blue balls you.
That's why he's locked in as number 1. It was those numbers right there. But moving into this season, the big moving piece, the shakeup that could really come to the defensive pairings is Bowen Byram.
Yep. 19 games played last year, 2 assists.
Yep. That's not super pretty to look at.
Yeah. Offensively, it looked like his confidence was shot at times.
Yep.
And then you saw him down in Arizona, and he even said it after the game. The first thing that comes back is your offense. Because you start to feel it, and that's what goes well. And then defensively, you've got the speed of the game. You've got reads. You've got team concepts. You've got structures. You've got breakout. You've got plays that you have to remember and get to. Offensively, you can kind of just go and play.
Yep.
While you're still trying to get into the rest of that stuff.
And this is coming from a now 20-year-old kid who, in his 19 NHL games, was putting up real defensive numbers that, frankly, you just don't see from rookie defensemen on that side of the puck.
Yeah, you talk about Adam Fox and Quinn Hughes and guys who have had very, very good, and obviously Cale Makar.
Yeah.
Guys who Miro Heiskanen, guys who have been very good early on in their careers. A lot of that conversation is built around what they've done offensively.
Yep.
Now there's a guy like Fox who's been very good defensively in multiple years. In 1 year, his quality of competition wasn't very high. Last year, it was as high as it gets.
Yep.
So should not be a question about Adam Fox as a quality defender anymore. But outside of a guy like Fox, who won the Norris last year, who beat out Cale Makar for the Norris Trophy, in what is, by the way, was the most balanced voter pool that the PHWA has ever made, because it limited the number of East Coast voters in a way that the East Coast bias was less in play this last season than ever before because of the voting block and the restrictions in place.
Yep.
And it's a testament to Fox of what an amazing season he had, that he won over that many voters. But with a guy like Byram, if you look at what he was able to do defensively last year, and it's not that far off from what a guy like Fox was doing, just defensively. The
obviously,
whole
the
package,
offense isn't
obviously,
there yet, but yeah.
obviously Adam Fox is and really all those guys I've talked about, Heiskanen, Makar, and Hughes, those guys are all miles ahead of where Byram is through 19 NHL games.
Definitely.
But what was so encouraging was Byram's defense, and especially his ability to recover from mistakes.
Yep.
And the way that he played his way into games. He got stronger as games went on.
Yep.
He justified more ice time in the second half of games. He's not a small guy either, and he's not known. Like, you don't look at a profile of him and think thumper.
Sure.
But like Makar, if he sees an opportunity, he'll lay the wood. And this is a dude who, if his defensive game can reach the level that it was last year, you can 100% justify putting him next to Cale Makar while Devon Toews is
out
healing
or
up,
whatever, and just run and gun, baby.
And then when Toews comes back, if Byram has justified that spot and has done well and thrived there, then you just roll Girard next to Toews,
which you already know works,
which worked wonderfully last year, and left Girard as kind of your rover.
Yeah.
And if with Byram, though, you have the kind of very high upside young player that can slide into an impact role and take off and change the complexion of your defense entirely. How different are the Avs in last year's Vegas series? How different are they if Bowen Byram is established and he's next to Cale Makar and they're rolling?
Yep.
And they, let's just say they accomplished exactly what Toews and Makar accomplished.
Sure.
They were a good pairing that drove play. How much is Sam Girard helped by not having to elevate every pairing he's on? And Devon Toews is there to stabilize him and to help him, to be a healthy outlet for him with the puck and not make it so that Girard has to do all the heavy lifting offensively.
All of a sudden, Girard has a teammate to work off of on the back end.
All of a sudden, he's breaking pucks out.
Yeah.
And they're getting out of their own zone and not making mistakes that are ending up behind Philip Grubauer.
Yeah.
It completely changes that series.
It
wild. Completely changes it. And that's the potential of Bowen Byram. He has the chance to change the complexion of their whole defense and elevate it from this is a very, very good defense to this is a complete monster that cannot be stopped. And all of you are about to get chewed up and spit out by this buzzsaw.
Which is our best case scenario for Byram, more or less. I don't know if it's the exact verbiage, but finds his offensive game, becomes a two-way monster, likely ends up next to Cale Makar, if that does happen.
Vibing.
Turns out when both of you watch the team a lot, you both come to a lot of the same conclusions.
When you know what you're looking at, it's not hard to get to some of these places.
Yep. His worst case is realistically that the offense doesn't come.
Yeah.
And
it's real hard to justify playing a guy 25 minutes a night if he's two points in 19 games is an 8-point pace across an NHL season. That's unacceptable.
It's not going to fly.
Adam Pelech doesn't have any puck skill whatsoever and ended up with 15 points last year.
Yep. So you got to find ways to get involved.
And we know Byram is so much better than that with the puck.
You can see that. Yeah, obviously.
There's so much potential there for him to be a 40-point defenseman in the NHL while taking on the tip-top competition next to Cale Makar. And to be honest, there may not be a better complement to Makar than Byram's skill set.
Honestly, you could legitimately be looking at the new super pairing of the NHL.
It could be. I mean, it could be what Werenski Jones was early in their careers.
Yep.
But with nitrous.
the afterburners.
Yeah. I mean, they could be the Fast and the Furious version of it, whereas Werenski Jones was like, I don't know, like the Italian Job. It was it was one.
Byram and Cale are driving a Lambo down an airport. Down a runway, and
let's stay on recent topic. Okay. They're driving the Mercedes car.
There you go.
They're driving the Red Bull car, and Werenski Jones was driving the Haas car.
There you go. Quite a big difference there to the 8 F1 people that I know watch this show. We got you, Team Max. Let's go. In any case. So Byram is absolutely the wild card of the Avs defense. He is a piece that could ascend the Avs to victory or could leave a hole in their lineup, especially when you look at injury options. When Toews is out, Byram is going to have to be in the lineup and be effective. Mm-hmm. And let's be real, the Avs lineup defensively, you're expecting some injuries. We've already talked about Murray. We can move into EJ now.
Let's do it.
He's back. He's healthy to start.
This is a big deal here.
Yep.
And I don't mean that just because he is a large human being. But Erik Johnson has been Colorado's number one defender for a long time. He's very clearly not number one anymore. He's very clearly not number two anymore. And he's very clearly not number three anymore when they're all fully healthy.
Yep.
And if Bowen Byram makes the leap into what we were just talking about,
he's not even number 4.
Erik Johnson may not even be number 4 anymore.
Yep.
And if you're talking about a Ryan Murray, Erik Johnson third pairing, first of all, go back to 2013 or 14.
How drooling are you over
and
that?
you're just like,
what? Erik Johnson and Ryan Murray is your bottom pairing.
Yeah. And you're looking at because Murray would have just been drafted and EJ was rolling along as number one guy.
On his way up in Colorado.
In Patrick Waugh's Avs, where he was the guy.
Yep.
Putting up 39 points and doing everything for them. That could realistically be a third pairing when fully healthy.
Yep.
With Toews gone, I do wonder if that limits the potential for the Byram ascent.
Yeah.
Because they do have Erik Johnson to lean on. They can put him with Makar and have him be on the left side if they want. He's never really done that. He's always kind of been a righty on the right side.
Yeah.
So it would make more sense to go Makar and Johnson right.
Yeah.
But which one plays next to Girard? Which one plays next to Murray? Is Byram relegated to the third pairing just because he's the kid?
It's possible.
And Murray ends up being a guy on your second pairing and you get Turn and Burn reunited? Could they flip it? Could Ryan Murray be on their top pairing next to Cale Makar?
That would be wild, man.
The thing is, we're talking about Murray in time as a third pairing guy, but Ryan Murray would not be out of place on that top pairing next to Cale Makar. He would not be. It would not be like Ryan Graves trying to keep up. Ryan Graves trying to survive. He would be a much more natural fit.
He's been there before.
And he's been asked to do those things before. And while he wasn't incredibly successful, he also was not being asked to be the man on that pairing. Just don't make mistakes.
Yep.
That might limit some of his offensive breakout. It might bring it out on a different level because he's going to be on the ice with the first line a whole lot if he's next to Makar. But with EJ's health allows them to do is all of that. They can do any of those combinations that we just talked about and more. They could Byram and EJ next to each other and Murray and Makar and then Girard next to Curtis McDermott as the guy to just try and keep him. Please, Kurt, don't hurt us too badly.
You got me daydreaming now of how is being the fifth option not the best job in the world when you're on the ice with Makar, McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog, and you're the guy who walks into the offensive zone and there's just no one anywhere near you at any point in time because they have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, well, and then McKinnon stands at the blue line and you're like, are you about to do that weird wrister thing? And you just give it to him and you just start piling up
get
assists.
Points.
Because that shot just inexplicably goes in.
So,
and then their primary assists, so the numbers nerds like us are like, they're all primaries. He's so good.
When they were 2-foot passes to McKinnon. Not even relevant. McKinnon actually takes it off of his stick for him.
That's right.
This is mine now. Thank you. Yeah. So and it's going to be interesting, as we have always seen Jared Bednar deploy defensemen situationally. Yes, exactly. Yep. So you're going to see plenty of mixing and matching. And I'm really
Boy,
curious.
Is there ever a difference between trying to finish a game with Patrick Nemeth and trying to finish a game with Erik Johnson? And I don't say that as any offense to Patrick Nemeth.
No.
I think even Nemo would tell you there's a difference there between those skill sets.
Yep.
They're both big. They can both be physical. But EJ's really underrated. His work along the wall and in the corners.
I mean,
but his ability to
that
just break pucks out.
People forget he's 6'6", dude. He's a monster.
So he's listed at 6'4", and I got flack for this.
Okay.
Because he's listed at 6'4", but I'm like, no, he's bigger than that.
Yeah.
I've always thought he was more like 6'6". I will, if I can, I'll try and ask him at camp and just be like, officially, how tall are you?
I mean, I don't 6'4", 6'6", whatever. He's got thighs thicker than my entire body. So
he's a legit, like, let's go with 6'4", like 220.
Sure, that's fine. He's a beast.
He's very big and he's very strong.
Yeah.
And he's very motivated because that is a dude that checks social media, and that is a dude who has watched a lot of Avs fans ask for him to be bought out. And I can tell you there's some pride there, and he's a very, very, very motivated player.
And
to reward the faith that this organization continues to have in him.
And I think especially as a 4th, 5th, 6th defenseman, when we start talking about best worst case here, this isn't complicated. Everyone knows what EJ's capable of.
Yeah.
Best case is he stays healthy. Worst case is he doesn't.
Best case, he's healthy, and he is a perfect complement to what they do. Worst case is homeboy gets hurt. But this best case has been undersold by guys like us all offseason.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately, we really haven't gotten into it because it's just like everybody knows what it is with Erik Johnson.
Yeah, it's just a given.
This is a guy that could give you 10 goals.
25, 30 points.
25 points on 10 goals.
Yep.
You know, he's not been a big assist guy the last several years, but really his whole career.
Yeah.
He's got a great shot, though, and he does not have to be that guy anymore. He does not have to be the guy who plays 25. And I know he relished it and he loved it and all. He would, I think even he would tell you he would easily trade the role for the success of the team and the quality of the team that's around him now.
Yep.
Because he played 4 games last year. They won the President's Trophy, and Erik Johnson wasn't relevant to any of it.
Yep.
How different is their postseason run if Erik Johnson is healthy? How much better do they match up with Vegas if Patrick Nemeth is not in the lineup?
Yep.
And then you move the 2 guys who struggled the most against Vegas defensively were Graves and Nemeth.
Yeah, by a long shot.
When it came to moving the puck, they were both in the 30s in terms of shot shares and scoring chances. So they were hemorrhaging quality opportunities, and they were hemorrhaging quantity of opportunities. And if you put in the puck moving ability of EJ and Bowen Byram into that series, it's very, very different.
People don't talk about this with EJ much, but you've seen it before with him in the playoffs. He's not fun to play against.
No.
He's not.
He fit very nicely into the anything goes atmosphere of the postseason.
Exactly.
Where he's like, look, I'm a
large human being.
I'm a pterodactyl. Watch me spread my wings and wrap these big old arms around you like a very lovable teddy bear, but I'm going to instead squeeze you out like an anaconda and move on.
Yep. And then possession has changed and you're done.
And that guy's dead. So you have a man advantage.
Works out well.
On to the next guy.
All right. So let's
Erik Johnson, it's interesting because so much of this conversation's been about his salary and he's not worth this and he's too injured. And look, if he gets injured again and he misses all year, I think you're in a position where you can't buy out injured players. But if he gets healthy at some point, you have to consider it. Yeah. But if he stays healthy and he plays to the level that he is capable of playing, even a diminished version from his heyday, he's not that guy anymore. And that's okay because he doesn't need to be.
Yep.
He is still such a huge boon to them.
Yep.
Huge boon to them.
It's just a massive pick-me-up. And we talked about with the forwards, this team isn't as deep as it was last year.
Yeah, right.
A healthy Avalanche defense, you could argue, is significantly better than it was last year. And it was really, really good last year.
And that was driven by the big three.
Yep.
Their big three, because those guys, for the most part, stayed healthy. Now, each of them had their own games that they missed between COVID and the foot injury that Toews had, and then Makar's couple of dings here and there.
Yep.
There were games that those guys missed, and the defense just hummed along. Yeah. But remember, part of it was remarkable because the defense hummed along with Jacob McDonald,
Dan
Renouf, and Kyle Burrows.
Yeah, it didn't matter who was in the bottom
Middleton,
end. Yeah.
And those guys are all gone for the most part, with McDonald the only holdover.
Yeah.
And you're talking Bowen Byram and Erik Johnson and Ryan Murray stepping into those roles. Now, losing Connor Timmins really hurt.
That does affect it for sure.
Because that was their seventh guy.
Yeah. The set and forget put in the lineup by the end of the year.
Yeah, and that group, just on paper, that their 6 best defensemen, if they ever get them healthy, it's clearly the best defense in the NHL because Tampa Bay lost.
Savard, gone.
Yeah, they lost that third pairing that made them so good. And now it's in Colorado.
And the Avs found it, pretty much. Yeah. Exactly. Before we get to the big two, I do want to touch on the depth guys a little bit. We now know
through them real quick.
Yeah, this will be super quick. We just now know that the Avs do intend to play McDermott as a defenseman first.
Yep.
So that's a thing. We've talked about it plenty this offseason. I don't think we really need to go over it much more.
Yep. Don't have great hopes there, but he brings a serious physical presence. He's always had an underrated shot. So there are some elements of his game that you could talk yourself into being upside if they really shelter him and limit him in a proper way. He's a guy that could help them with some of the nastiness of games, I guess.
Physicality, grit, sure, whatever.
He hits people, or he chases down a depth guy on the other team to fight him after somebody hits an Av, and I guess that's important in the game.
Yep. I mean, look, you can say there were better options out there, but at the end of the day, like we just talked about, let's say EJ needs a night off. Let's say Murray needs a night off. You can drop McDermott in, and the Avs defense will be just fine.
The thing with McDermott that is quality is that there's not going to be an ego issue there. He's very comfortable in his own skin as a depth only guy.
Yep.
And that's something that I do think that they were missing last year. It's my own personal opinion.
Sure.
Having not been in the room, it's a lot harder to say. But I do think that having a 7th D who knows he's a 7th D.
Mark Barberio type.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that will help. Can they just get Mark Barberio's caliber of play?
Right. And that is the big question there. The other one, you already mentioned it, Jacob McDonald, likely in line to be that
the YOLO master himself.
8th-ish D, where when you're freewheeling, you can drop him into the lineup if someone's out and just go for it.
Put up good numbers, played way more games than we expected him to last year. Was a really weird analytics darling. Not a coach's
in ways
darling.
That made no sense.
Yeah, not a coach's darling because he didn't play any defense. But when you touch the puck and you get down to the other end and they freeze the puck because you shoot it every time, well, then you get to get off the ice and your numbers look good. So, hey, there's upside there. There's promise there. As a depth guy, knowing that McDonald is both comfortable in the system and has a history of being effective for you, he should definitely be a guy that they are not shy about bringing along.
Yeah. All right. Let's.
He should really be first in line, but we know better.
Yeah. We are aware of what the score is.
Yeah.
All right. AJ, I'm just going to ask you direct on this one. Does Sam Girard have another gear?
We're going to skip Jack Johnson?
Oh, yeah. I guess we can hit Jack Johnson really quick.
Jack Johnson's on a PTO. Shouldn't be signed, but we say shouldn't from our opinion, but could be. They could decide to give him a deal. We'll see how it goes with Jack Johnson. Pretty much everybody is familiar with his history as being one of the NHL's more overrated players by the people in the league. Analytics and stats and all that stuff, none of it has ever been
on
in his favor.
Side, yep. And
the one thing that he does well is gets in front of stuff, whether that's opposing players for hits or
Or
shots
pucks,
for blocked shots. That's the appeal there. If he's healthy, he will probably not stay that way because he hits people and he blocks a ton of shots. Great for your fantasy teams, though.
If he is signed, which he either will or won't be by the time this airs,
Yeah.
he's 7 or 8 probably.
Yeah, and chances are Bednar will love him, and we'll just have to deal with that.
Yep. So that's that. On to my much more important question. Does Sam Girard have another gear?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think
You
last
think
year...
this is it?
Well, because 32 points in 48
That's
games.
a lot. That's a lot.
Big-time point. That's a 50-point pace. So I don't think Sam Girard has much more to give than a 50-point pace. I do think what he did last year, he can repeat.
Okay. So it's not an outlier.
I don't think it will be. I think he can easily 35 to 40 points is probably where I expect, but I'm very open-minded to the possibility of him
Clicking up a little bit.
blowing past 40 and getting it more into the 50 range.
Yep.
He has the kind of offensive ability where if he was not on a team with Cale Makar,
He'd be the man. Yeah.
He'd be running a power play, and I would have more faith in his ability to
That kind of number.
stack up offensive points, some freebies there along the way.
For sure.
But because he is behind Makar on the depth chart, because Makar does get to play at even strength with the top line all the time, he has all those advantages going for him, and Girard is missing out on that stuff.
Yep.
So Girard, I think Girard rocking and rolling along in a 40 to 50 point area is exactly where I see him, and where he's already so good.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I do think continuing to figure out how to be effective at his size defensively, moving pucks. Look, it was nowhere near the train wreck that some people would have you believe it was for him in the postseason. Some of it's bad luck. Being on the ice for 12 of the, I believe, 15 even strength goals.
It was a lot.
Against Vegas is absolutely problematic, but to also blame him for all 12 of those goals is insane.
Yeah.
So, and especially because he was in terms of shots and quality of chances and stuff against, he was right about 48 or 49% in most of those
Wasn't getting
things.
cratered, yeah.
Right. And so he's really breaking even as the guy who was rotating.
Yep.
As the guy that was trying to elevate every pairing. And I think maybe looking back on it, you could say they should have tried something else.
I think so.
Maybe they should have tried Makar as the one to elevate. Maybe they should have tried Toews as the guy to elevate everybody else. But continuing to go to the well with Girard and trusting in him in that role, it wasn't that he failed, because I don't think that's fair. It was just that he didn't get a lot of help. And when we went into the offseason, that was one of our big talking points. It's not replace Sam Girard. It's how can you help it? And between Erik Johnson and Ryan Murray and Bowen Byram, Sam Girard's got more help than he ever had last year.
And when you're asking about someone to elevate, Sam Girard is never going to be the player that's going to go out and do it entirely individually.
Yeah.
He's always a guy that plays off of players well. You know he's a pass-first player in the offensive zone.
Definitely.
It's just the way he plays. He doesn't have that electricity that sometimes, obviously, Makar has. You see flashes of it in a guy like Byram.
Definitely. I mean, that's the stuff that makes Makar special.
Right.
Not just very good, which is what Girard is.
Yep, exactly. So with the help that he has and this defense on a whole, what a coach's dream to go into it with the six like that and say, oh, this guy's having an off night. No problem. We can run the other 5 and not worry about it.
And really, what's starting Toews out on the bench or on the injured list.
Yep.
You'll get to see they have an opportunity here to show that, hey, McDermott or McDonald, that's their 6th guy. Jack Johnson, that's their 6th guy. They can protect him as well as anybody else gets protected in the NHL.
Yep.
Because the guys that they can put next to him should not be on third pairings.
Correct.
Not one of those guys. Byram, Murray, Johnson, Girard.
If you want to go that deep, yeah.
None of those guys should be on a third pairing in the NHL.
Yep.
On pretty much any team.
Yeah.
Those are all guys. Girard, Makar, Toews would all be in, are all in some version of the conversation of making the Canadian Olympic team, which is the deepest defense out there.
Yeah.
Byram maybe in a few years gets into that conversation. EJ at this point, and Murray at this point, probably not there, but certainly good enough to continue to be middle pairing caliber of defensemen in the NHL. And having that kind of flexibility is just so rare that they can move a Sam Girard down with Toews hurt. They can move him down. Hey, go babysit Curtis McDermott or Jack Johnson or whoever ends up as the sixth guy on opening night. Girard has the ability to do that. He can do that in the regular season. I don't want to see it again in the postseason, but in the regular season, he can elevate that guy. You can play matchups with him. You can get a little cuter with him because he's so good.
Yeah, his ability to create and skate with the puck is so talented, especially in the regular season, to just get out and into situations that are great for the Avs.
And when teams try and cut that off, if you empower him with other talent around him,
all of a
he'll
sudden
find it.
He's creating space for everybody else.
He will utilize it. And those 2 forecheckers that you sent in to shut him down specifically
now they're behind the play.
Those are now 2 guys chasing the numbers that you have going up the ice.
Exactly.
So you have to. It's not about replacing or wanting more from Girard. It's about empowering Girard. It's about surrounding him with the proper amount of help.
So,
because it just very clearly the limited puck guys of Graves and Nemeth were not it last year.
So with Girard, it's just keep on keeping on this year.
Yeah.
And if he can hit the 40-point mark, you've got gravy. I mean,
absolutely. And the worst case is that the postseason.
I even struggled to find a worst case.
Yeah,
for
the
Girard,
postseason
honestly.
ended up being a harbinger of doom, and he struggles.
And that's what I came up with was like if the second power play unit continues to have deep dry spells.
Well, and with Byram and Murray and Johnson all there are guys who have run power plays in their careers, who you can give looks to. But it's really, and he's been really good on the PK. You want to save him on the PK this time.
Yep.
If you can, you want to try and save him.
So let's just top this cake.
With some kale?
With some kale.
The worst cake.
Yeah, that's going to be a terrible cake. But I can say to you with a straight face that the Avs may have the best defenseman in the league.
I think they do. And I think we're about to see something real special.
Pop it off.
I think we're about to be witness to some history.
Let's go. I'm ready for it. I'm here for it for Cale.
My personal bet is that Cale Makar, because Cale Makar hasn't gotten a third league in a while.
Yeah.
Or a third year in a league in a while.
Usually it's the second year that's ridiculous.
It's a couple years in the AHL, move on.
And he hasn't
after he wins everything. So a couple years at UMass and he moves on after he wins almost everything.
that there is.
The second year in the NHL, wins a President's Trophy, finishes second in the Norris.
Yep.
All right. Well, now it's time to go win a second round, win a Norris, and push for a Conn Smythe and a cup. I think
Globetrotter tour here, basically.
I think when it comes to Makar, there is no ceiling. There is no prediction too outlandish.
I agree.
As long as you're being realistic. Like if you're like, oh, is Cale Makar going to have a 150-point season? Probably not, big guy.
Cale Makar is Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, then okay. But I mean, as long as we're staying on Earth here.
Is an 80-point season in realm? Absolutely.
I don't even think, I think with Makar, the true ceiling here that we can have the conversation of, that's a realistic conversation, is can he break 100?
Triple digits.
Can he have a 25-75 season? Because you're not gonna break 100 points as a defenseman with 90 assists.
No, that's gonna be tough.
It's just not gonna happen, Bobby Orr. Not in 2021, 22. Yeah. It's just not the way the game works anymore. But can he score enough goals? And I think the answer is absolutely.
I think the thing about Makar, I don't know if there has ever been a defenseman that has the ability to create space for themselves the way that Makar can.
He shakes people, man.
Yeah.
And I've always compared him weirdly to Allen Iverson.
Yep.
But he shakes people and he creates a space in a way that is just not
It's borderline not human.
It's not normal for a hockey player. Not for a McDavid.
Yep.
Not for any of these guys in the modern game. It's just not normal for a guy that when you sit down and you watch, you're like, that guy's weird.
Yeah.
That guy's different.
Yep. He pops in
Yeah.
a way that nobody else does.
He's a tough, and like Rangers fans are, Adam Fox, and like Adam Fox is great. Quinn Hughes,
not going to take anything
great.
away from any of those dudes.
But I think we just saw that the best of Adam Fox has
Yep.
to offer.
Yep.
And I think that there's a different level for Cale Makar to get to. And it is no bones against any of those other cats that I think Cale Makar is going to be the face of the defense of this next generation, and that it's already begun.
Yep.
And he finished second in the North voting in his second year.
Yep.
I mean, if he hadn't lost to another second-year guy, this would be a huge piece of history.
Yep.
But it was interesting. He was neck and neck with Quinn Hughes for the Calder in year one. He was neck and neck with Adam Fox in
Norris in
year two for
yeah.
the Norris. Who's he going to be neck and neck with in year three for the Hart?
Ooh, Nathan McKinnon. Well,
And that's the kind of conversation that you have with Cale Makar. I don't even have a worst case.
Yeah,
the worst case is that the injuries continue.
I guess I don't remember what
and
I
he
put,
doesn't get to
but
play.
Yeah. If he doesn't play, the Avs are going to drastically miss him. That's the worst thing. That's the only bad outcome that I can come up with.
When you talk about the Avs potentially being special, it's because they have elite guys at center.
Yeah.
I guess wing and defense, and maybe for the first time, goaltender.
They have arguably a top 5 player at center, at right wing, at defense, and at goaltender.
Right.
So and
if
Landy's
you take
top 15.
And if you
at
take
left
away
wing,
Cale Makar, the Avs are still really good.
but
They're that extra level that they
Yep.
can get to that other
Yep.
teams, that they become a lot more
human. Yeah. All right. We've been recording these things for
Vibing.
18 hours, and we're about to merge into one
I was
human
gonna
being.
say we're starting
Yeah.
to become one dude at this point. It's starting to get weird.
So this video is already insanely long, but hey, tomorrow we have Avalanche hockey
It's
that
a
matters.
full podcast.
Yeah, this will just be like our podcast for that day, maybe. Thank you for joining us for all of our preseason coverage. I'm super excited for the season to start in earnest. We hope you all will tune in. I'll be doing a watch-long opening night. Of course, we'll have the whole smorgasbord of content, whether it be written, video, all the way around. We hope to see you at all of it. Be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube for all of our video stuff. We're ready. I hope you're ready. I know the Avs are ready. Until the start of the season, we'll talk to you later.